All right, so let's start with the presentation. And I'm going to give it to the actual presenter of the night, Steve.
Oh, is it me? Okay, start presentation. Niels, somebody, tech support, move a slide forward because I think we're aware this is a town hall meeting. Um,
There you go.
Look at that, look at that. I feel like Chris Whitty. So what we're going to talk about is, and it won't be all me speaking, you'll be glad to hear, is we're going to look back at 2020 and what a fun year that was. We will talk a bit about organized play. We're going to talk about a 2021 World Cup, World Championships, and then probably the key bit to finish on is just the future of Guild Ball. So what we basically want to talk about is what we did in 2020, because we're aware you didn't all see what we were up to, and what we're going to do in 2021. So next slide. Yeah, so looking back on 2020, that was a fun year, wasn't it? Check it out. That was great. So other than all the other sort of personal, delightful, fun stuff that happened in 2020, I think the three main things in terms of Guild Ball, and it's kind of worth getting the order of this right, was that we had the pandemic basically obviously collapsed sort of traditional organized play. So obviously we're having, unless you're in New Zealand, we're not really having any large organized events or any sort of face-to-face stuff particularly. It shrank the active player base and moved everyone online. But I think the main thing it did with that move is, so a lot of people just stopped playing entirely because don't want to play online. Those that do play online mean that the meta is a lot less local and a lot more global. Which is kind of interesting. So there's a lot more sort of cross-pollination and stuff. So Sam Bresden, our delightful member who runs Longshanks, has christened it Guild Ball the video game trademark. Have we registered that as our own trademark now? I hope so. And most games are now online. And some of you then may also have noticed that Steamforged games stopped supporting Guild Ball. So that raised basically a lot of questions for us, the community project that was set up in response to that, but particularly where does Steamforged games stand at all in relation to Guild Ball? How do we keep the game moving forward? And importantly, like, what does the Guild Ball community project exist to do? And we spent quite a lot of time in 2020 just deciding, like, what's the point of us? Are we just a bunch of people that want to sort of look after the game and hold it in stasis? Do we want to take it forward? All of that sort of stuff. So we ran a very large community survey, which I think most of you will have filled in. So thank you very much for everyone who took part in that. We had nearly 800 participants in the survey. The split of the group was about 50-50 between people who sort of define themselves as competitive players and people who define themselves as casuals. The good news is most of the people who took part in the survey, only 4% of them told us that we shouldn't exist. And we did have a couple of people who were like, a couple of the survey comments were, sort of like, get over yourselves, stop doing it, just walk away, that sort of thing. So that was nice of them. But yeah, so 96% of people wanted us to do this. And then in terms of what people actually requested, we tried to ask people like what their priorities for any community run version of the game was. And the top one that people said was the production of small erratas, so 10 or less models. That was pretty much unanimous. There's a big demand to finish the minor guilds, and there was a nearly as large enough demand to provide sources of models. Now, this wasn't to say that people wanted us to, like, as the community project, to create models and design models and sell models, but that we should in some way either signpost or deliver or provide ways for people to actually source models in some shape or form. And then the last thing was sort of building support for competitive and community events, so things like tournament packs, but also online resources, pundit programs, and sort of support through that mechanism. So that was the sort of brief we felt like we had from you guys. And that's what we've essentially used to inform quite a lot of the decisions that we've made in sort of going forwards. So I think we can go to the next slide now. So yeah, so the way we structured the community project was the steering group, which is all the people that are speaking at the moment. We were the sort of people that sort of pulled all this together, and we wanted this group to only make basically decisions that we couldn't go back on, if that makes sense. So it would be things like we should, remove Corsair from the game. That would be like a steering group level decision. But then what we want to do is make sure we weren't just like trying to do everything ourselves, because we're not experts in all of this. So we did a big community recruitment drive, which we had about 100 people sort of respond to, in terms of people offering to support us around things like communications, organized play, creative, so that's the artwork and the lore, and then rule specialists, so to design any new models or make changes, and then people who could provide us with sort of legal or financial advice. So we had about 50 people now involved with the project overall, so it's definitely not just the 6 of us. It's a pretty large organization, and that represents about 12 countries. So we tried to make sure that the spread of people supporting the community project was representative of as many metas as possible. And I think the big thing we wanted to say is like, a huge thanks to everyone who's been in touch with us, who's given us advice, who's suggested changes to us, who's spoken to us, because it really has made what could be an incredibly difficult process actually be a really enjoyable one, and one we're pretty excited about how we can sort of move forward in this year. And that's sort of where we are in terms of structure and the systems we put in place. So we're quite happy with that structure, and we're quite happy with how people have been engaging with it. It's been a big learning curve for us. I think it's been a bit of a learning curve for some other people, but it's all super positive. And I think the thing we're confident about is we as a community have taken ownership of Guild Ball now. Next slide, please. I feel so like Chris Whitty. I'm sorry, that's a really niche reference, but Google Chris Whitty slides. I'm now going to hand over to Sonny, who's going to cover organized play, because I couldn't talk about organized play slides with that Americanized spelling.
Hello. So for organized play, we had a rough year behind us. What we already did is we managed a bit of the organized play document to more prominently support Puzzle and War Table. But the current OPD is mainly written for in real life events. So some rules and regulations are needed for online play. And this is why we want to publish a digital OPD by the end of February. So this should include or will include that there is a firm game submission deadline, that judges should assist, or the tournament organizer should assist and schedule games if necessary, and that judges must be available to observe and or make game rulings as needed. We want also to include a code how you want or how you should behave if you are a viewer. So something like that advice, commentary, and ruling is strictly forbidden unless agreed on by both players. So the focus for this digital organized play document is to get everything we want to see from online tournaments and into the organized play document as we know it now. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so World Championship 2021. I'm not sure who was meant to pick this up. Is this you or me, Sonny?
Yeah, I meant to pick this up, but apparently my Twitch didn't. It seems a bit slow. I didn't see the new slide. So we want to make the World Championship 2021 happen. We discussed it. We discussed several scenarios beforehand, as we didn't know how COVID-19 will be looking in 2021. But for now, we are pretty sure that we can't hold a real-life World Championship 2021. So what's the solution? It is the reason why we want to have a firmer organized play document with digital gaming. We want to make the World Championship digital. Next slide, please. For this digital World Championship, we wanted to see to have a bit of a structure like the World Championship it was before, like first nationals and then going to the actual World Championship finals. But with the player base for online gaming, it is difficult to make real nationals, and therefore we decided to make qualifiers events based on time zones. There will be 4 time zones, and it is assumed that you can play at around 8 p.m. of the local time of this time zone. It doesn't have to be exactly that you have always be able to play at this time, but you should be in general. You can sign up any time zone you like if you have some weird time schedules or something like that. You can sign up for a time zone you're but we decided that you only can sign up for one of these time zones. After these events, we will make the World Championship finals. We decided to determine the number of players later for this. It would be a minimum of 8 players and a maximum of 32 players. The reason why we decided to decide later the amount of players, it's just because we wanted to make the best and fairest distribution about the 4 different time zones, and we need to know the amount of players in each time zone to determine what's the best distribution, and then therefore the final number of players in the finals. The World Championship qualifying events will begin on the 1st of March. It is planned to have 1 game per week, and you can see the time zones. It's Europe, America East, America West, and Asia Pacific. Yeah. Then the World will begin on May 1st. The qualifying events sign-up phase will start next Monday. And I have one comment regarding the organized play document, and one point I've just seen in the stream chat. The clock.
We'll deal with questions at the end, Sonny. I think we'll do questions at the end.
Absolutely.
Yep. Perfect.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sonny. So I think that covers us onto so next slide, the future of the game. Is this? Oh yeah, so this is me again. So, nice, not at all controversial subject, the relationship with Steamforged games. So, the view that we've taken at the community project is that we would like to have a good working relationship with Steamforged games. This is partly stuff we've decided ourselves. We also had a long conversation with Dave Downs, who runs the Guild Ball community runs the Blood Bowl NAF program. He's the president of that, and he said, "Look, everything's just easier if you get the company that holds the rights on board. So we've begun a conversation with Steamforged in fall 2020 around licensing agreements, what we could use, what we couldn't use. I think it's fair to say Steamforged were interested in working with us, and they're definitely not opposed to continuing to support the game. But it's unclear at this time if we will actually have any sort of official relationship with them. That's all we can actually sort of really say at the moment. But what we'd like is just the ability to use the artwork, to use the cards, to use that sort of thing without any sort of worries about sort of legal or proprietorial challenges. So it's mostly a good housekeeping thing. We don't think that anything that we plan to do would be hindered by not being in partnership with Steamforged on it. It would just be easier if it was. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope people kind of get an idea of why we're covering that. And I think we're on to the next slide.
Oh, let's wait.
Future events. Okay, so we are aware that sort of online systems are only a thing that some people like. Most of us play Guild Ball because we want to play in person and meet people. Obviously, this is sort of super COVID-19 contingent. And all of this is really heavily influenced by what happens with COVID-19 and what happens in different guilds in different times. But what we would like to do is by Q3 or Q4 this year, dependent on what's going on, is start to roll out a community event, along the sort of lines of Union and Change or Chains or Free Cities Draft, just whatever the options are. We'd also like to try and return to real life in-person nationals events. I think our guess would be this would be at the back of 2021, but obviously it's dependent on stuff we don't know about and no one specifically knows about at the moment. But that is what we would like to do, is start having far more real life events and having nationals again, having a national circuit, having an in-person World Championship circuit as soon as we're able to do so. And probably slightly before that would be to run any sort of community event, because at a push we could do that digitally. So we want to move that forward and onto just get everyone playing in person again, because we're aware like the Vassal and Tabletop Simulator World Championships is great because we want to do something in that space. We want to do it now. We're aware it's not for everyone. Next slide. Okay, so the main thing that you guys asked us for in the community survey was erratas, so we're doing one. We're hoping to have it out. We are pretty far down the line with the errata. We're currently testing. We're looking at model updates only, so we're not making any changes to core rules. We're not starting a new season at this stage. We're just looking at sort of 10 models at the moment. We don't want to rock the boat too much on our first try. We think there's some pretty obvious stuff to go after. Icaros needs to be nerfed. And then the plan is to release that after the World Cup and after the Digital World Championships, because we want to check the data against some of the models we're not sure about. I think we've locked almost all of them, but there's a few we're uncertain about. And obviously there's some questions about the depth of the changes we want to make. So when we do that, we'll do a little release event for it. We'll do some stuff around it. And the plan would be then to start rolling out those erratas sort of every 6 to 12 months, dependent on how this one lands. But we're also aware, it's the first time we've done this. So the guys in the rule steering group have been working really hard at it. We've got a group of play testers who've been looking really hard at stuff. And, we're reasonably confident about this. So wait and see.
Yay! I think mine's the next, right?
Yes.
I think you're next, Geralt. Yes.
Yeah. So before we switch, so the next slide will be.
No, why? Okay.
Why? No. Okay, there we go. Minor guild. You asked for it and we listened. We're bringing up a minor guild, and this is the presentation and the slide for the next minor guild, and it's going to be the Lamplighters. And we had a fantastic artist, Kybel, on the Discord, came up with all the drawings. We've written a lot of lore for them already. If you've been following the story so far, we have been teasing a bit about what's going on. There will be another story drop after this presentation is finished. And we actually came up with a little Steamforged inspired little short presentation of the guild. So push the button.
Push
engage.
the button.
I can say engage.
Here we go.
There you go. Psst,
Their trade is a solitary one. Out at all hours of the night in the worst bit of town, on a wobbly ladder, with nothing to defend yourself but a stick and a large match on the end. Rumour has it that the lab rats use them as messengers, ferrying information around between secret labs that are best kept hidden. Makes sense when you think about it. You can see all sorts when folks don't pay attention to you. Nobody bats an eyelid at a lamplighter. That's all about to change, if their new captain has her way. Old Nightbell was quite content, buddying up with the alchemists and playing the odd friendly match. The team was an insular one, but they got on well together. Nightbell was never much interested in the crowds of the big leagues. He popped his clogs all of a sudden, leaving those in charge to have some serious thoughts about their guild's future. Nightlight shone brightest out of all of the favourites and took the captaincy. Apparently Nightlight has the skill, heart, and most importantly the feet to stand out in this game. I guess being favoured by one of the superstars of the alchemists doesn't do much harm either. Their links to the alchemists don't stop there. The brother of that fire-breathing pisshead Mercury is amongst their ranks. Quite happy he was to stay in the minor leagues, so I heard. I wonder if he has the grit for the sport on the larger stage. Neither are too keen on that golden-armed blowhard helming the team of their comrades. To both herself and the world of Guild Ball, Nightlight has a lot to prove. I just hope that the team's brightest light doesn't dim twice as fast.
Okay, thank you to fantastic voice actor there, and let me say some words to what we're seeing here. You're looking on the right. You're looking at the captain and the mascot. Yes, somebody already guessed that the owl is the mascot. And on the left, you have a character, a squaddy called Vic. So that's that. I want to say some words about what our plans are with them. So currently, creating the rules is work in progress. We had some fantastic input, and the rules guys will do a fantastic job. I'm very convinced of that. But we have been talking about models because models is what makes the ball roll. So the owl is not the captain, though. Models are a different beast, and this question has already come up, and I want to touch point on this very, very briefly. We have been discussing the opportunity of crowdfunding, but with us being unable to make profit on this, we would have to be very careful about how to word this, how to organize this, and how to get this done. But we're looking at, and we have an artist who has been working for Steamforged earlier. We're looking at trying to get this done and also trying to get STLs to the community, most likely crowdfunded, to enable everybody to print or have custom print their own team. So yeah, handing it off again back to Steve to the next slide, please.
I'm waiting on the slide. I'm waiting. See this? You can't get the slide clickers. You can't get the slide clickers these days. That is basically it for the plans for the year. So just to summarize, once again, we want to do a Digital World Championships in the next few months. We want to release 4.4 Errata around about May. We would love to do in real life community events and or an actual tabletop world championships. That is COVID dependent, but we will do some sort of community event in at some point this year digitally or in real life, ideally on the table. And the last thing we want to get out there is the Lamplighters Guild, which, as we say, we have the artwork for. We have some very, very initial stuff around the rules. We would love to say, like, June 2nd, that guild will be released, but we're going to give like a proper sort of politician's deadline of sort of around about summer, because we don't know how long this will take us. We want to get it right, and that's our priority. And that's it for the presentation. So please, guys, just sort of fire up questions in the chat. Let us know what, anything at all that you're thinking, what your reaction is to this, what you think we should be doing, what you think we shouldn't be doing. Yeah.
Mascots, yeah, we heard you.
Thank you. Paragon City Games, nothing firm for community event plans. We want to do a community. We want to do a community event. We haven't firmed up what it would specifically be, what it would be about. It could be about what the next minor guild is. It could be about additions to existing guilds. It could be about getting rid of Corsair from the game. It could be about buffing alchemists, and it could be anything at all.
What's the thing in the bottom right? Was there a question? It's a spoiler. It's something unannounced, and most likely not even rumored about. You'll see. Another shout out to a fantastic artist who made the artwork for it.
What other questions we have? Tryhard Dan, clock for the digital championships. Who wants to take this?
I can take on this. We have discussed this heavily, and we are not yet in a final decision. We have many voices who said that Guild Ball isn't competitive without a clock, and some who says that, also many who said that Guild Ball online with a clock is not good. We have the option to use the Longshanks clock on Vassal or the inbuilt clock on Wartable. I think this is one thing we have to determine until March, and we would love to get some feedback from you about.
Yeah, I think we're on the fence about it. We can see the argument, particularly in terms of time. We are unsure, like, about the sort of workability of it and how much it actually adds to the sort of games. So we'll make a decision about it. If anyone has, sort of interesting experiences about clock or lack of clock on Vassal, please do let us know. Barbaboom's asked, will the World Championships be on Vassal or Wartable? Does someone want to field that?
So, Steve, one Paragon City Games is, if I'm correct, that's Brian. So he has been answering questions in chat.
So slick, Brian. So slick. I think we should still. I mean, is it useful for us to answer them vocally as well? I think we might as well.
Sure. For the guys that don't see the chat and only see the video.
Yeah. So Vassal or Wartable? I think the answer is both. Is that correct?
I think so. Yes.
Most likely, but as Brian pointed out in the chat, it is not set yet. If we decide for a clock, it might be that Wartable will be the better solution.
Yep. And so what else we got? Will rats get disease immunity? Good question. That we can't spoil at the moment. I think we have got something to do with rat catchers on the errata list. I think I can say that.
Oh, that's the first big spoiler. This is an unsolicited spoiler.
What else have we got?
You heard it. Rat catchers get nerfed.
Yeah. We're gonna nerf Bonesaw.
Any more questions from you guys? Oh no. Okay, so we can't. We are under NDA with Steamforged. They would only talk to us if we sign an NDA. So we can't really talk to anything related to the ongoings with Steamforged right now. Is that fair to say? Anything you want to add, guys?
I think that's correct. Yeah, I think what we can say is what we would like to get out of it, out of any relationship with Steamforged, would just be to make this whole process as easy as possible for the community and for us for doing that. But we can't talk about any specifics in the conversation at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
will errata changes be updated in the app? That is our intent. Yeah, obviously we need to work with the people who run the app.
Yeah,
for
we've
that,
gotten in touch, so that's ongoing. Let's put it like this.
Are there nerfs incoming? The plan with the errata, like with any errata, is to make a balance of nerfs and buffs in the changes. So we would be looking at making both sort of improving and weakening some of the models.
The Mr. Eggplant asked for the judges on the tournament games. Maybe somebody wants to pick that up.
Hat, do you want to take that? Because you've just run a very large tournament that we're basing quite a lot of this off.
Yeah, basically at the moment the tournaments that that me and Jeroen have been doing were actually without judges, but we have had loads of people talking to us about like, okay, stuff happened in my game and I'm not sure if what people said was correct, and like it might have lost me the game. I'm not sure, and we would like to really make sure that stuff like that doesn't happen anymore. The way we are thinking of how to implement this, so having a judge for an online game, is another thing entirely. So this is something that we are still thinking about, and I'm not at liberty to say anything about it just yet, I would say.
Yeah.
If I could chime in for just a second, that's having judges available is one of the reasons that we're structuring it based on time zones. So in each of the time zone events, we're figuring that games will happen around 8 p.m. local time. So hopefully that'll make it so that you can have a judge from that same region, or a judge that's awake at that same time, can be available.
And I think just to touch on the clock thing as well, I think the way our thinking's going on this is like, obviously tabletop Guild Ball is way better on clock. Anyone who's ever tried to play off clock will know that. But clock in online gaming is really hard. Like it's measuring very different skills and very different things, like basically your ability to use hotkeys. But the other thing is, what I think Hat, you and Jeroen found with the online tournaments was we actually had quite a lot of new people join. So we don't want to limit the ability for newer players to participate in online tournaments. And also we don't want, and by newer players, it doesn't necessarily just mean people who haven't played Guild Ball before. It means people who haven't played Guild Ball online before. So the likelihood I think we'll end up at is that we'll recommend clocks but not require them, and that would be about both parties sort of agreeing, whether they want to use them or not. Any other questions? It would be interesting to see if Steamforged Games would sell the IP for Guild Ball. I think a lot of people ask them that. I think the community project isn't. We're not set up to make money. We don't have any ability to handle cash or handle income, and that would create a lot of problems for us in terms of our use of any of Steamforged's copyright. Obviously, if we bought it off, it would be different. But we're not currently planning to have that facility in any way. One of the things we decided is we don't want to be a for-profit organization. We couldn't really register it as a charity, we didn't think. So we're happy with the current structure.
And we're set down in how many economic zones and legal zones? 4 at least?
At least 4, yeah. We've got strong options for registering as in tax havens. I think that we don't necessarily have the income stream.
You just want to have it in the UK, admit it.
Yeah.
So there's one
question for Steve.
Oh, question for Steve. Yeah, there was one question before from Mr. Ebuck, a judge decision for game delay. I would say that the decision for judges, like the rulings they have to hold themselves to, I think when we are going to roll out the digital OPD, I think we are also going to include a list of rulings that the judges can look to basically so that all judges have the same standards.
Yeah, and then this question, yeah, I forgot.
So, Steve, question for you. Finnegan's
No.
Wake.
Yes. What's the question about Finnegan's Wake? Whatever it is, the answer is yes.
The question was, what is the likeliness that you have somehow worked Finnegan's Wake into the new upcoming lore?
So after an off-air conversation between Hat, Andrew, and I, when we were recording an episode of Singled Out, it was decided that I cannot contribute to the lore in any way, shape, or form, lest we end up in court.
This is correct.
So
yes.
that is the summation of my involvement in the creating of any lore. Sadly, it's being left to others.
There's another question to the WTC that I want to touch base on real quick. So the WTC this year had to be cancelled. It's a really sad story. Everybody knows it. The WTC team is still motivated to keep going. But I think the events throughout this year will show how much of an interest is there. Because if we don't get, let's say 20 teams or 30 teams, there isn't much of a WTC to be had. But if there is enough interest and if there is enough drive to have the tournament, there will be the tournament. I think that's enough I can say to that right now.
So I also saw a question from, please work with me, Hendrel55 asking, has there been a discussion of a process to add new judges to the community? So basically, I think he's talking about us appointing judges to get a judging pool for tournaments. This is not something that we in steering have talked about yet, but it might be an idea. You guys, would you like to back me up on this? Anything else to say?
I think that was a good answer.
Okay.
I want to answer the digital WTC.
Go
ahead, Sonny.
We actually talked about re-establishing a rules council like it was before with Steamforged games, and this is not actually like judges, but it comes pretty close.
Yeah, so basically what was previously the Lawyers Guild. I also see a question here from Dan the Chemist. Will pundits come back? The pundit system, boys.
We first of all we couldn't and we wouldn't be allowed to acquire the pundit list from Steamforged. So that being said, right at the moment, I don't think we have the network to support, send stuff all over the globe and so on and so forth for tournament support. But we had been talking about it, and it's like how do you say this in English? The glimmer in the corner of the eye, where you'd like to have something like this. But
a gleam in the eye. A gleam
in the eye. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've definitely talked about recreating the pundit system in some way. It would be something we'd be looking at much more closely in a non-COVID environment. I think at the moment we've got enough people sort of stepping in voluntarily for the online stuff. But yeah, we would like to offer absolutely, say by the end of the year where the world has somehow reverted to something like normality, we would love to have support for pundits and support for people running events and so on, but we need to work out what would be viable for us to do.
Any other questions, guys?
Just seeing. Can't see anything online WTC.
Yeah, let's have the World Championships online, and then if that is workable, we will look at the possibility of an online WTC. Let's put it like this. The World Championship will be a huge benchmark for this, I think, in terms of all the questions that were out there already today, clock, judges, doability, and so on and so forth. So we'll see. I'm not saying no, I'm not saying yes.
Yeah. There's a question that's come in via a non-Twitch format, which is how comfortable are we releasing an errata that's only been Vassal tested? Because obviously Vassal is different to real world Guild Ball. I think obviously we would much rather release any errata be real world tested as much as possible, but given the situation we are in, that is unlikely, and we feel like the sort of the aim for the errata is to go for changes that are relatively low hanging and are relatively straightforward. So I think we'd be much more concerned about making really complicated changes to something based on just Vassal, but we're reasonably confident about making errata changes based on Vassal feedback. Some of them are no-brainers, like, buffing Vetcat.
Shh. Mate. No, but the thing is, mostly we've been talking with the rules committee about this, and as Steve is saying, most of the changes we want to make are low-hanging fruit, and most of them are based on issues that were already present also before 4.3 was even released. So before the pandemic, before we all started on Vassal. So yeah, saying that we based the 4.4 errata on Vassal games, it would be incorrect, I would say.
And then we've got one more question. I think, Sam, were you going to field this? The question from Sir Eggplant about the World Championship being split into 4 time zones.
Yeah, so the World Championship being split into 4 time zones, how do you plan on splitting the numbers based on population of players in each area? The short answer is basically that we don't. If we get massively different player counts in each of those events, maybe we'll look at convincing some people to shift into one or the other, or adding a 5th, or dropping down to 3 or something like that. But assuming that the numbers are at least in the same order of magnitude, we expect that to be okay. We're considering how to invite and how many people to invite to the finals. May not be the same for all of the events. So if you have one has 16 and another has 64, the 64 will probably send more players to the finals than the 16 will.
Yep.
Okay.
So I would also say there's a last question here then. So Mr. the Dog is asking what we are wearing.
Who wants to go first?
I wear a black Therion long sleeve t-shirt.
I'm wearing a tartan jockstrap.
As one does.
That's it. It's riding up a little bit, I must say.
Okay, I'm wearing a hat. So in other news, I see some other questions here as well. Like one question here is, can we look forward to content from podcasts such as Singled Out? Steve?
No, we've never had content on Singled Out, and we don't plan to start now. Yeah, we will try. Yeah, anything Guild Ball related we'll be covering still in Singled Out. It's still a Guild Ball podcast. There was a question I just saw
Yeah, the question about
regarding Steamforged employees. I'm just trying to find it.
Yep.
So the question was, since there are a few ex-Steamforged staff that have engaged on Discord, etc., are they allowed to contribute to the GBCP, or are they until forever NDA? Steve, would you like to handle that one?
Some ex-Steamforged employees are involved with the GBCP. They are very happy to volunteer the time. Some are not. I think there's obviously a question about asking someone to do something they were previously being paid to do for free in their spare time and the efficacy of that. So we would only, I think, engage, like, okay, we all know, like, you know, a lot of us are on the community project are friends with people who worked for Steamforged and work for Steamforged. So we obviously speak to people on a personal basis. We would accept, obviously we would very, very strongly consider any request to engage with us from anyone who's worked at SFG and who's worked on Guild Ball specifically. But we're not actively chasing people down. And as I'm going to read out a comment from Dunlock, who I think is fair to say is an ex-SFG employee, and has said, if SFG aren't going to finish it, someone has to, even if it's for free. The game is that good and deserves it that much. And that's some of the sort of, I guess, some of the sort of mentality and thought process that some people have brought to the community projects. Not me, but more clever, ethical people.
Also, we're eternally grateful for everyone who continues to play, contribute, and so on and so forth. You know, guys, yeah. If nobody's there, it's just 5 guys sitting in a Discord and wanking each other's dicks.
Exactly.
Oh, guys, Henry has an interesting question.
Okay.
Henry asked, Steamforged staff couldn't qualify for Worlds. Will GBCP committee members be able to play this time around?
I won't. I could qualify for Austria because nobody's playing anymore, so that's good.
If you guys want a real answer on this, I think the real answer is probably that we're not going to be passing out cash value prizes in terms of hotels and plane tickets and stuff like that. So that, I think, was the real legal reason why this SFG staff couldn't participate.
That's true.
Yeah. But with all the money I've made trading stocks recently, Sam, we were going to have some sweet prizes. We were shorting. I've been shorting Guild Ball, and it's going really well.
Yes, but you can't tell them that you will give away the Irish.
So I think probably, to be honest with you, at the moment, as many people playing as possible is our aim, and we wouldn't want to restrict anyone playing. And sort of importantly, we wouldn't want to restrict someone. The people are engaged in the community project at different levels, so maybe the steering group wouldn't participate, or maybe the people writing the rules wouldn't participate. But I think, to be honest, we just want as many people playing as possible. But if the community had a strong reaction to that, then some of us would recuse themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's one more thing that I was asked offside of the Twitch chat, and I just want to answer this real quick. Yes, we brought the Lamplighters first. No, we are not binding us 100% to the proposed names for the remaining minor guilds that Steamforged released at the end of official Guild Ball. So could be that they're coming the way they are, and maybe they aren't. Just putting this out there.
I think the Lamplighters were the least controversial possible choice in terms of
Yeah. Plus, somebody went through the trouble of making that really nice artwork, and we want to use it because it's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think, unless there are any other sort of burning questions.
Well, we need to see the map.
Okay, sure.
Oh, the Austria map. I think we'll end on the Austria map.
We'll end on the Austria map. Yes.
I'll end on the Austrian map. Let me get it. It should.
It's a very last question. Approximate date for the small updates is May. May we're aiming for the recent release of the Errata.
I think you'll have to bring it. Yeah, there it is. So there you can see. One is Austria, the other one is Australia. It's very easy, lads.
So on that bombshell, I think thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for anyone who's watched on the Twitch or YouTube stream or whatever after the recording of this, and have a great day, evening, weekend, week, month, year. Thank you all.
Bye.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.